Utopias. They've appeared all over the world, developed in different cultures, different time periods, and have almost never been successful. The definition of the word utopia is defined as an imagined place or state of things in which everything is perfect. Of course, this sounds like a desirable prospect, but is it even possible? Some people would argue that the idea of perfection in itself is inconceivable. Thomas More, an English lawyer, statesman, philosopher, and author, created his own fictional utopian society in his novel Utopia. The island of Utopia that is developed in this book imagines an oval-shaped landmass that envelops a large amount of water. This bay serves as a harbor that is protected from the elements, easily regulated, and allows the islanders to be, theoretically, totally isolated. Within the island, there are dozens of religions, and every citizen has the right to worship anyone and anything they believe in. The society is essentially built up as a place with no greed, no poverty, and no discrimination. A place where everyone's desires are fulfilled and no one is left with wants. A perfect society? Thomas More does go into some detail about the policy put in place to keep these ideals a reality, and that's when we start to see potential flaws. First of all citizens determined to be capable are required to work 6 hours a day for the same benefits and the same compensation. While this might pass as equality on paper, once you begin to look at varying difficulties of certain jobs, skills required, and so on, a standard pay for all working citizens doesn't seem all too fair. Going back to the idea that all religions are able to be worshipped, free of discrimination and hate, is a wonderful ideal, but is that all it is? Religious holidays on the island are celebrated under a universal name for God, so as not to disclude any religions. These holiday celebrations bring people of every religion together at one temple for a day of worship. In theory, this could go seamlessly and peacefully with no adversity, but when imagining all or even half of today's religions in one location for worship, it's hard to imagine nothing would go amiss. There are a number of other issues I could discuss about the life on Thomas More's Utopia Island, such as how there's no profoundly severe punishment for crime on any level, but instead let's take a look at a few utopian societies that have actually existed. Unfortunately, many of the real-life utopias aren't quite as interesting or imaginative as sci-fi utopias like the society in The Giver, in which people see in black and white and take pills to suppress their feelings. No, in real life it's a bit more dull and depressing. The fortress town of Palma Nova, located in Italy, was constructed as a military asset for the Venetians against the Ottoman Empire. From a bird's eye view, it appears as a 9-pointed star citadel with ramparts and a moat. While the citadel was of course meant to be militarily strong, its construction and design were intended to express ideals of social harmony. The entire supposed utopia is enclosed by one perimeter with what appears to be all the living quarters and necessary facilities in one condensed area. This certainly does promote social harmony, but that's simply because of the close proximity in which the Palma Nova citizens are forced to live. The high walls and gated entrances create a sense of isolation from other societies, and in theory would allow the town to operate in its own way. Unfortunately, quite few people saw Palma Nova as a desirable place to live. An unknown English author in the 1600s described Palma Nova as a strong fortress, but a miserable little town. In order to solve this problem, the Venetians eventually resorted to pardoning criminals and offering them financial incentives to settle. Most utopian societies rely on citizens' loyalty and commitment to making a perfect community a reality, and oftentimes for them to accept a certain degree of conformity. Pardoning criminals and essentially bribing them to become part of something like this is an incredibly poor way to ensure stability. Although a fortress, Palma Nova was never involved in a true battle, and despite its apparently impenetrable walls, Palma Nova was captured twice. First by the French and then reclaimed by Italy. The Utopia obviously being a failure, it is still standing today and is actually a national monument. The village of New Lanark was founded in 1786 and was inhabited by beneficiaries of some laudable utopian socialist principles. Robert-Owen, one of the founders of what is known as utopian socialism, is described to have had a major role in the creation of the village. He built homes for many of the original residents coming from the poorhouses, and eventually opened the first school for infants in Britain. Some of the major flaws of the utopia that were brought up included things such as child labor, which was very easy to gain access to as the village itself was built on a cotton mill. Another problem in the village was the fact that entire families were forced to live in a single room. During the time period, families living in small spaces together was not uncommon, and child labor was not nearly as discouraged, let alone illegal, as it is today. As a general idea, even things that appear to be perfect at the time will not withstand the test of time and will quickly dissolve, much like New Lanark, or will be forced into change. So, are utopias possible? Maybe from the perspective of one person, maybe in fiction, but realistically, no.